Okay, everybody. So here is chapter 2. And I was able to get a little bit more time added. So I think I'm going to do a couple of chapters more instead of just one chapter at a time. Chapter 2. I am 11 years old. I'm mad because I missed a day of 6th grade for this silly doctor's appointment that started with my dad asking me to sit up straight, baby. I was sitting up straight. I was holding my shoulders back. Yet to them, something was off. Deep down inside, they already knew what it was. After a series of tests, including muscle biopsies, my mother was diagnosed with facioscapular humeral muscular dystrophy when she was in her 30s. By this time, she had already given birth to my 10 year 10-year older sister Valerie and me. Now here in the office for my appointment in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the doctor had given his verdict that there was no need to do further testing and submit me to all that pain. Facioscapular humeral muscular dystrophy, or FSHD for short, is passed down genetically. What my mother had was also manifesting its symptoms in me, though I was cheerleading and playing softball at the time. The weakness and drooping in my shoulders and the wing scapula were what my dad had noticed in me when he had encouraged me to have good posture. In that room, sitting on that table, blanketed in too thin paper, I looked to my right and saw my father let his chin drop to his chest. Shoulders began to heave back and forth, and choked back sobs seeped from his throat. My daddy, my 6'6", 300-pound superhero, had been defeated by a kryptonite that lived inside of me. My mother did not meet my gaze. She was staring out the window. If she stared long and hard enough, she believed that she could keep her back turned against the monster in that room. A battle raged inside her own disease-racked body. The enemy of fear forced boulders of sobs to rise in her throat and caused her bottom lip to quiver versus the contender of motherly protection, which gave her a strong desire to take this burden away from my future. What have I done? This disease is hereditary, starting with me. I've given this to her. I can bear this. It's mine to bear, but her, oh God, please take it away from her body. I will take it all. The words that ran through her head were not, however, what came out of her mouth. We'll fix it, baby. It's going to be okay. She was trying to convince herself as she reassured me. Sitting there, I could never begin to understand the sentence that was given to my parents that day. Letters in a too long word that most people couldn't pronounce would begin to take hold of my life and force me to hobble along, carrying this 100-pound rucksack of feeling not normal for the rest of my days. One moment, a few words, a broken daddy, a fighting mad mama, and a ripped apart 11-year-old girl. That day, the phone rang too much. Family members who were anxious for news never knew that they really didn't want to hear the truth. Mama went to bed, curled in the fetal position, and became angry at God. I have never known why my parents quit going to church after about the time I was 5 or 6 years old. Now that I was 11 and we still were not in church, God sure didn't convince my mother on that day that He was what we needed. In other words, He did not win one for the God team that day. Mama avoided answering the phone like she avoided this agonizing truth. Daddy immersed himself in westerns in the living room to escape reality. 2 hours away, Valerie, my 21-year-old sister, my hero, was being held in her dorm room by her roommates in an attempt to control her racking sobs amongst the objects that were being thrown. I, however, was oblivious to my life sentence. Sometimes youthful ignorance is bliss. The next few months were spent trying to fight off this monster. I would be checked out of school to go back to Chattanooga, a 40-minute drive, for occupational therapy. There in the floor of T.C. Thompson's Children's Hospital, I lay on my belly on a blue mat, trying to pick my arms up off the floor and hold them, suspended in midair until the therapist allowed me to collapse them. I crawled the wall with my fingers, inching up until I could no more. The therapist drew out pictures of various exercises for me to take home, and I would diligently give this muscular dystrophy monster the old 1-2 with my squats and arm lifts. At school, there were no noticeable differences on the outside, at least not in my mind. I believed I was doing a great job hiding my flaws because when you're in middle school, being like everyone else is to be normal. I cried alone at night in my My Little Pony's bed covering, with my face muffled in my Disney character pillow. I asked to God, whom I did not know, yet invariably blamed, why me? My doctor's appointments were secret, and there was no mention of my awkward walking among my classmates whom I had known since kindergarten. I did not know then that I was just truly in a safe haven of friends and teachers who knew me so well that they did not pay attention to any differences, and the whole time I thought I had them fooled, that there was nothing wrong with me. It wasn't until high school that I knew the secret was out. Chapter 3. Before band practice one day in the 9th grade, a friend of mine told me that a boy and a girl in her class had gotten up in front of the class and mimicked the way I walked for everyone to laugh with in agreement. I was devastated by this because no longer could I blend in with the crowd and just remain unnoticed. Despite my fiery mouth and my love of being the center of attention, I didn't want to lay my weaknesses out on display. I have to say that I was pretty doggone good at making others believe there was nothing different about me. I made myself believe myself. I made all the typical teenage mistakes. I dated a guy that my parents forbid just to defy them because it was real love. I didn't pick up the phone, the ones with the cord, to tell my parents where I was or why I was running late. I was dumb now that I think about it. And the bad part was that I thought I was the smartest thing that ever walked God's green earth. Let me just sidetrack to give you an example of teenage stupidity in its finest. My best friend in high school was a boy who was a year older than I was. He was a guy that my mom deemed as no risk to me, and she seemed to realize our friendship. He could drive, so occasionally Mama would let me go somewhere with him. One night we were at his house watching a movie. I looked up to his digital clock, which said it was 10 minutes after 10 o'clock. Now, this makes no difference to you, but to my mom, who had laid down the law of a 10 o'clock curfew, to her now 15-year-old daughter, being 10 minutes late was equivalent to being dead in a ditch. I knew as my mouth gaped in horror while I stared at that clock that by now she was pacing the floors, fingers poised on the phone, talking herself out of calling the police. We raced out the door to his car, a Mercury Cougar, which we affectionately named the Pimp Mobile, and down Highway 72, making a 10-minute drive from Stevenson to Bridgeport. As we neared my road in Bridgeport, we were now 20 minutes late. Death was certain for me. Because 15-year-old girls are brilliant and conniving, I told my friend to pass the road to my house and go up to the gas station. Yes, I said the gas station. There's only one, which sits next to the one red light that we have in our town. Once at the gas station, I proceeded to get out of the car and approach the payphone with a master plan. Frantic mother. Hello. Idiot daughter. Hey, Mom, I just wanted to let you know because I know you'd be worried that we stopped in Stevenson at the gas station. And when we came out, you know how his old car is. It just wouldn't start. Never you worry now, though. We have it started. That's what took so long, and I'll be home in 10 minutes. Now, notice that I said we were in Stevenson. No, we were in my hometown of Bridgeport. The way I figured, because I had 2 brain cells at that age, in the 10 minutes we were driving from Stevenson to Bridgeport, he and I could just ride around and spend some more time together. Great thinking, right? Lesson number 1, don't mess with my mama, B. Cox. She doesn't play when it comes to her daughters. To say she was strict would be like calling Cruella de Vil Mother Teresa. Frantic mother. Oh, you're in Stevenson, huh? No need for him to bring you home. You just keep your butt right there. Except she didn't say but because we were not right with the Lord then. I'll be there to get you in about 10 minutes. Words ceased to come from my mouth. I looked at my friend, terror filling my eyes, and yelped while dropping the germ-infested payphone receiver. As I ran to the car, somehow he knew who to run also. I told him that she was coming to Stevenson to get me. We weren't there, remember? To add that, if we headed back to Stevenson, we would risk passing her on the way. The back roads were our only hope, although they typically took longer than the highway, and every second would matter here. My friend roared the cougar to life, and we zipped down the back road, dodging whatever possums might dare to cross our path. Somehow, and I cannot say it was by God's grace because I don't think He blesses running to outwit your parents. We made it to Stevenson with 2 minutes to spare before my mother pulled into the gas station parking lot, where his car had ostensibly had trouble starting. She beckoned with that one index finger motion that mothers do for me to get into the car lest I never breathe another breath here on earth. On the way home, she lectured me about responsibility, and for punishment, she made me call all of my percussion friends from the band and cancel the get together I had planned for us at my house that weekend. She never knew the truth behind this story until I was in college and emailed a story I had written about it to my sister Valerie, who happened to read the story to my mom. Sure, she did not realize Mama had no idea. Oh well, now you get the stupidity that oozed from my ears. I was a typical teenage girl, and I worked hard to emphasize typical. In 10th grade, I dated a guy who had a four-wheeler. I loved to ride it, as I never had a four-wheeler growing up. One day, however, I jumped on the four-wheeler, and I couldn't get my left foot to pop up the gear shift. It seemed that the top of my foot was too weak to apply the upward pressure needed to shift gears. I didn't know then that what had happened overnight, it seemed, was called foot drop. It was the beginning of walking and slinging my foot out in front of me to keep my toes from dragging the ground. It was the beginning of tripping and falling. It was the beginning of more stares and more jeers. It was the end of the denial and the beginning of my anger towards the disease. Often happens because we feel threatened. Yeah, I guess I was threatened, all right. Threatened to be labeled as weird or different in school. Threatened that I would never play softball, run again, or choose a marching instrument in the band. Those were the biggies then. As life went on, my anger was directed at much larger issues. I was robbed of ever feeling a child move inside of me. Anger built up because I couldn't just go on any excursion a cruise has to offer. When looking at the cruise brochure and the descriptions of the island excursions, I not only had to look for the $ icons, but also had to look for only one of the little physical activity man icons. 3 icon man, 3, that's 3. Y'all know I'm bad at math. 3. Icon man usually meant you were going to climb a waterfall or something adventurous like that. Not me. I had to stick to the ground, and that ground better have been level. Here's a little picture of Jason and I in Mexico, snorkeling. I'm angry that people stare at my legs when I walk through the mall. It makes me feel like I'm just a pair of wobbling, foot-slinging legs, which are, by the way, built a lot like upside-down tapered candles with several wax dents on the top. I have no head or torso to these onlookers. I'm just the legs. I want to scream, I am a person. I am not just this disease. There is more to me if you just look up. In high school, I used to walk around with a smart mouth response, ready for anyone who dared make fun of me. I became proficient in sarcasm, which I believe is one of my greater talents, and unfortunately, I began to look for others' weaknesses so as to be ready to counterattack their own personal deficiencies. One time, my mother and I were in a restaurant. As I got up to take our tray, I walked by a man and his family. As I wobbled on by, I saw the man nudge his wife and say, "Y'all watch this. Watch the way this girl walks." I swear that I felt my blood pressure starting my toenails and shoot out the pores of my scalp. "What did you say?" I demanded through my gritted teeth as I limped up to the edge of his table. He sat with his head down, no eye contact at all. It was probably a good thing because I probably would have punched him in the eyeballs had they laid their gaze on me. I'm telling you, I was feisty back then. Mama wheeled up again about this time. "Nia, what are you doing?" "Hold on a second, Mama. This man has something he needs to say to me." Nothing but crickets could be heard there in the old corner booth. No wisecracks from Mr. Man. No stares. I felt triumphant, but the emotion was fleeting once I went to any other public establishment. Another time I was in a department store. Every time I went down an aisle, there was this man. I began to feel that we weren't shopping for the same items. So I purposely went across the store in some random aisle of cleaning products. Guess who? There he was, my assistant shopper starer. As luck would have it, while I was shopping and needed to stand there a while, I had to go to the bathroom. Wouldn't you know that it was one of those really scary ones in the back of the warehouse? As I eased my way around boxes and inventory, I went into the restroom. I began to wonder, what if I came out of the stall and he's just standing there in front of the sinks? What's a handicapped girl's game plan going to be? I could scream like a banshee while stabbing him in the eyes with my car keys. Okay, I'm prepared. Click. I opened the door and stepped to the sink to wash my hands. No, man. Whew, I'm good. Feeling safe, I opened the door of the restroom to walk back into the warehouse. When I opened the restroom door, ta-da! There he was. What's wrong with your leg, girl? He slurred. Really? Really? Are you serious? This is what he's been following me around for? I was more than a little insulted. I was furious at his stupidity and his gall. I actually thought of telling him that I had a horrible car accident and my leg was maimed. Now, maybe I was a sports star and had injured in the bait game. Oh, or maybe I had a wooden leg like a pirate and the termites had been chewing on it. Instead, I said, well, if you must know, I have muscular dystrophy. Oh, he said, I'm sorry, I was just wondering. Well, now, there have been a lot of things in my life that I have wondered about when I have seen people out in the world. Is she dating that much older man? Why do all the druggies have a litter of babies that they can't take care of? Is she anorexic? How can he stand that nagging wife in the grocery store? But I do not go up to them and ask. Socially disabled. That's what those people are. I'm convinced. Nobody wants to be stared at. No one wants to be treated differently or questioned. And no one wants to put up with, oh, bless your heart, hun, you crippled. Well, thank you very much for blessing my heart, but no, I do not consider myself crippled. I can't speak for everyone who may be different or handy-capable, but I know my own limitations and setbacks. I don't need anybody to point them out and make them more obvious than they are. So when you're walking into your local grocery store and you see someone with cerebral palsy or somebody who's blind, look the other way. Not in shame or disgust, but just to simply make them feel like anyone else who's coming out of the store. Be the one person in their day who did not treat them like a leper. It threatens our dignity and our pride, and that leads to anger. Chapter 5. Life changed my 10th grade year when I was 15 years old. It was the year that the Lord placed me in his hand and the beginning of many future years of my dancing along the edge of his fingers, dangerously close to falling. There's me and Mama. There's me and Valerie and Daddy. I had the greatest family I could ever ask for growing up. My mom and dad's salary together was what I make now as a teacher, which everyone knows is not that significant. Example, an assistant manager at a fast food restaurant made more money than I did when I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree. Although my parents were careful with our money, whenever an opportunity presented itself at school, such as a field trip or class project, they made sure I was involved. They came to all our football games to watch as I played the xylophone. I can't see for that little box. In the band, the xylophone on the sidelines, while the marching band exercised their strong legs behind me. They made me do my homework as soon as I came home from school. My family encouraged me to work a part-time job after school to begin paying for any brand name clothes I wanted, so that I would learn to appreciate what I had and the value of hard work. They pushed my sister and me to become strong, independent women who could take care of ourselves. In the midst of 1,000,001 moral qualities that my parents instilled in us, one major aspect was absent: God. My parents had gone to church when I was little. I was in children's plays and remembered snatching candy off the walls that had been taped up in the fellowship hall during our Halloween party. Something happened, however, that made my parents quit attending church while I was in elementary school. I think there was a rift in the church, or my parents got their feelings hurt, or whatever, but my mother doesn't even remember. With all due respect to my sweet parents, that pride and self that they wore then kept my sister and me from knowing the true lessons we needed to learn. I needed to know that God thought I was beautiful and that he doesn't make mistakes. It would have been important that I knew that he knit me together in my mother's womb, because that might have kept me from being angry with him. the disease, and my mother for passing it on to me genetically and others for staring. I would have known that His love was unconditional and that it was really all I ever needed. I have never been angry, or upset with my parents about our absence from church. We all walk in the dark from time to time, and we all fall for the devil's lies. I'm sure my parents thought that they were raising intelligent, proactive women just fine on their own. But as God would have it, He began to woo me to Himself. The thought of that is just amazing to me. He loved me so much back when I was saying, "Why, God?" to Him. Back when I didn't know about His birth, what resurrection was, or that He had a purpose and a plan for this disease. He still wanted me to love Him. He'd already chosen to love me thousands of years ago when He allowed His Son to die in my place. I never knew God's love was behind that invitation to Vacation Bible School. I had a friend who was struggling in her young faith. She at least was going to church and trying to do better. I didn't know I was even doing wrong. I guess that's why I didn't feel uneasy about going to a high school version of Vacation Bible School with her one night that summer. We were also having band camp for 2 weeks, so having the energy to go to VBS that night was a miracle in itself. I don't remember what the VBS lesson was about that night. I do, however, remember how I felt after we left the fellowship hall where our study had been to go back into the church where the preacher could talk to us. I don't even remember what he said. I just remember standing there during a song, white-knuckling the pew in front of me, and knowing that I had never gone to an altar to pray before. I didn't know Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior. I didn't even know what that meant. I felt like there was an empty spot inside of me that maybe walking to the front of that church would fill, but I was too scared. Walk up in front of those kids? I think not. I just keep standing there and feeling that feeling and wondering what I was wondering. At home one night the next week, I asked Mama about the feeling I had gotten when the preacher invited us to come and pray. How would I know? What does it mean to be saved? I asked. For the first time in my life that I remember, my mother talked to me about God. She said that she, my dad, and my sister had all accepted Jesus as their Savior, and that when the time came, I would just know. She said, it feels like a strong feeling that you just need to go and pray. At the same time, you may feel like you're scared and you might want to run away. Now, you'll just know when you know. Sometimes it amazes me to think of conversations and points in my life that I remember. Why do some memories stay and some leave our brains? For as many good conversations as I'd had with my mother, this one was divine. It was a pre-op appointment before my heart transplant. There was no coincidence in the fact that a night or so later, the preacher from the church where I had gone to Vacation Bible School just happened to show up at my house. He said I had filled out a card with my address on it while I was there, and I had checked that I would like to know more about getting saved. Wow, did I even remember doing that? As the preacher walked into my living room of our house, and my father muted the Western that was on the TV, my mother came in from the den to hear what was being said. I remember him sitting knee to knee with me in those juxtaposed chairs. He held his Bible in his hands, and he read highlighted scripture to me. Do you know what that means? He asked after reading Romans 10:9-10. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. I agreed. It means that I just need to believe Jesus is God's Son and that he died for me. I had no idea about the righteousness part or how that would all work itself out. Nia, do you want to be saved? He asked. My heart beat out of my chest. My hands were sweating. Finally, someone had asked me a question that my soul had been trying to break loose inside of me. I knew there was no doubt. I wanted Jesus in my life. I wanted to go to heaven. Yes, I practically shouted. We knelt together on our 70s style olive green carpet that was patterned to look like heads of broccoli. I lay my face in the chair where my mother always sat to open her Christmas presents. There I received the ultimate gift, salvation. I had done nothing to deserve it. I would later learn that I could do nothing to take it away. I asked the Lord to come into my heart and save me, and as I ended my prayer to the sniffles and snorts of my mama and daddy, I felt like an electric blanket had been placed around my shoulders. I was finally whole and in His hand.